Knobloch's Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, process production and social media. Hey knowers, welcome to our podcast. We are Knobloch's Dance, a social media-based company. We strive to say no to the box. We connect interdisciplinary art, technology, and artists to re-envision the process of art making and sharing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. This is Marthea.
And Azaria.
So we just had a wonderful interview with Matt Kent, and we're really excited to share our conversations with him, with you. He's actually the artistic director of Pilobolus.
Pilobolus.
So awesome.
And what a nice person. I really enjoyed this interview. He was so down to earth and
it was really cool for him to talk to us too as choreographers and creators. And I don't know, it just felt like we were really just sitting down having a conversation.
Exactly. So for our audience who might not know who Pilobolus is or the company, this is a rebellious dance company that started in 1971. And if you didn't know, I love their background story about how Pilobolus was basically born in academia with a group of students. I think
so
that's
cool.
One of my favorite company development stories.
Yeah, and their work really focuses on testing the limits of human physicality to explore beauty and power of connected bodies. So if you have not seen their work, I encourage you to check them out. You can go on their website, pilobolus.org, pilobolus.org, or follow them on social media at Pilobolus Dance, just to kind of see what we're talking about so you can get a visual. And of course, we'll feature it on our social accounts too.
Yeah, they've posted some really interesting photos on Instagram lately. I've loved following them.
And I think it really does give you a sense of how they're testing human physicality. They create it's almost like these architectural structures with bodies.
Definitely.
Which is really cool to watch.
Yeah, so they've created and toured over 120 pieces of repertory in over more than 65 countries, which is pretty incredible. They've performed on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and MTV music videos. I think the way that I first kind of discovered them was on their TED presentation, and I still show my students.
Oh, really?
That. Yeah, it's Symbiosis. I love showing that. Yeah.
Oh,
you can find
awesome.
it on TED, on the TED website.
A little about our conversations with Matt. We talked about these really interesting parallels between what it's like to be the role of the choreographer and then also what it's like to manage space. And it was really cool. He gives some really great metaphors and like the importance of, this childlike amusement and how he enters the creative process and things like that. So I can't wait for you guys to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, enjoy the show.
Well, we're excited to have you on the podcast with us, Matt. So to start us off, we were hoping if you could just briefly walk our audience through your career path and tell us more about how you ended up where you are now with Pilobolus.
Well, sure. I came to dance late in life. I was at the University of Georgia. I was in college as a music therapy major. And I guess when I started, if you had said that one day I would be a dancer, much less an artistic director of a world famous dance company, I've laughed in your face because it would seem so outside the realm of my world. But I had studied martial arts for many years. I had some friends who invited me to a dance rehearsal to meet some teachers. And I just fell in love with it right away. And in fact, one of the first companies that I saw was Pilobolus. And I thought, well, I could do that. That seems like a cool dance. It wasn't, you don't have to point your toes so much. Like I didn't feel like I needed to have all this, his background of technique, of a specific dance technique. So, and it fit very well with my martial art background. So I went to an audition almost as a lark and made it. And in 1996, I started, I moved to Connecticut, in rural Connecticut, where Pilobolus is based, and started working as a dancer. And for those who don't know, Pilobolus creates all of our work in collaboration with the dancers who are performing it, which is why they're permanently credited in the pieces. So you're right. So you're not walking in and being told like 5, 6, 7, 8, take 4 steps this way and do a kick, whatever turn. It's more like there's a problem to solve, and the group starts to solve that problem. So everyone in Pilobolus is a little bit of a collaborative choreographer, and I really liked that part. There was a time in my career after I'd been touring and performing for 3 or 4 years, maybe, let's say, I began really starting to kind of focus on the craft of making dances and making it collaboratively. And after I think I toured for 7 years. It's hard to know when I left Pilobolus because I never, because someone got injured and I came back and I stayed and I did a couple more Joyce seasons, the Joyce Theater in New York, and I was in and out. But I also wanted to make some other work and do other kinds of things. And I began to work with symphonies, kind of merging that music background that I had and making family music programming for Lincoln Center, their Great Performer series. And we started a company called Pickle Shoes.
Pickle Shoes.
Well, I just thought we didn't want it to be called Mad Kent Dancers. And we thought we're doing this for families. It'd be great if when we said their name, everyone laughed and knew that it's okay to be silly and that dance doesn't have to be serious, especially when you're going to do this for kids, and middle schoolers, that kind of thing.
Could you explain more what that looks like?
Well, we started off making, our first project was with a guy named Rob Capello, who is just a fabulous music educator and an amazing composer, symphonic composer. And he wanted to make a Peter and the Wolf, but he didn't want to do it if it had any, he didn't want to do it the way it had been done before. So we had, at the time, right when I was leaving Pilobolus, we were touring with the St. Lawrence String Quartet. And he made a phone call to them, and I had been in contact with, I had been chatting with them about music education and arts education and performances for families and kids and all this kind of thing. And it just, pieces fell together. It's often the case, I find, that when the public, you give people kind of the shortened version of how these things come together. And we need to do that because we need a very digestible kind of, everyone wants a soundbite. But the truth is, it was super complicated. It was just I happened to be standing there in the hallway when Rob called Leslie, and then she handed me the phone, and then I chatted with him, and we decided
synchronicity.
Yeah, all this synchronicity that happens. And I think sometimes people say that luck is when opportunity meets preparedness, and see, opportunity is just there all the time. Just have to be willing to stay open to it. So
do you have some tips for staying open?
You are listening to Navox Dance.
Pilobolus is a collaborative. I'm interested in collaboration. That collaboration, for me, I'm often interested. I want to spend most of my collaborations with people who are outside of my field.
Right.
Okay.
And the reason, the way this ties into staying open to opportunity, is that they will question things that you didn't even think to question.
That is very true. Yes, I can definitely see that.
They'll be like, what do you mean you always have to start that way? Or why do you have to be on the beat? Or why do we have to wear unitards? Or whatever, whatever that thing is, you know? So I think that's part of it, because in the dance world, we can feel like we are, you know, really branching out because we've put like a jazz performer and a contemporary modern ballet performer, and they're going to work together. But to most of the audience, they look exactly the same. They don't really see how different it is from their point of view.
Yeah, so, that's very true.
So it's like being a child and kind of looking at things and just having that kind of Zen-like beginner's mind as people. It's such a cliche, but it is helpful, I think.
Matt, I want to like die to yourself a little bit in order to imagine something new, or die to your habits.
That's why they say if you meet the Buddha on the road, you have to kill him, because you have to get past your idea of your sort of idolatry of your art, of your idea of God, of your idea of spirituality, of your idea of, you know, your life or your relationships. Those things, once they become concretized, they can be, you lose the ability to stay fluid, and it's harder. In some ways it's harder, I find, as I get older. It's like, you know, when you, now that I live in Connecticut and I have 2 children and we like to go, they're 9 and 11. And when it snows, we go to the sled hill, you know, and at first there's no tracks and you can kind of sled wherever you go, but it's not so fast. Then the snow gets packed in and there are these like, you know, well-worn
grooves.
Yeah. And they're very helpful because they're fast and they're fun. But it's nice to shake the snow globe up every now and then and make some new pathways, because as you get into your habits, those shortcuts themselves can start to keep you from seeing like a new way of doing things.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a clear image too to follow what you're talking about.
Yeah. Martha, can I take this next question real quick?
Yeah.
So first off, I can hear all of my Georgia friends and family getting on me for not doing a shout out to you going to UGA.
I know.
Kudos to you. I have to get that out of the way first. And then second, I just want to let you know how excited we are to have you on this podcast. For me personally, Pilobolus was a huge part of my undergraduate experience. And it's funny to hear how you kind of arrived to where you were, or to where you are now. Just letting you know the legacy is definitely out there, and it's exciting to talk to someone who's a part of it. So you've kind of told us about your journey a little bit, and now in the place that you are, what does that artistic directorship and choreographer / collaborator look like to this point that you are at now?
That's such a, you know, I just dread having to describe that. Like it's like, oh my God. Well, you know, some days, okay. So first of all, there's 2 of us. I need to say that up front. It's Renee Jaworski is the other artistic director of Pilobolus.
Right.
She danced with me. That's really important, because it's like there's always 2 of us, and we stay true to that spirit of collaboration in which the company started. And I think, you know, now that we are in the middle of our life, it's a very, and when we were asked to continue to take to sort of take the baton, when the artistic directors put us on that track to take over the artistic vision of the company, it became, which was like very surreal and weird, and thrilling. But we knew that it was really important that we, we were, I guess what I'm trying to say, y'all, is that we came at it from we weren't just coming out of college and falling into it. We chose this. And
Right.
even though we were friends, we did it at the risk of ruining a friendship.
Wow.
Well, first and foremost, we respect each other professionally. We're always sort of, what's inspiring us? What did you watch last night? What show did you see? What were you thinking about? That's a lot of, the trees, the clouds. We get inspiration from all of that. I've been thinking lately how they don't get enough credit. The rain and stuff. Maybe because I'm in Florida on vacation listening to the waves, but that's important too. So sometimes there's that sort of romanticized, like, what's our next project going to be? Mm-hmm. But then it's also balancing budgets, preparing to talk to the board, explaining to presenters on tour, what show we're going to do, deciding, talking to people about what is, I'm air quoting nudity. Is nudity naked breasts, or are thongs okay? Oh, we have to cover up completely. How is it flesh color? Does that count? There's a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a lot of it. So there's a lot of all of that, and then somebody has to like take the water up to the water cooler upstairs and do that and clean the toilet sometimes. So I guess I'm trying to say it's not all glamorous, because there's a physical building that we're also living in and taking care of. But I'm so fortunate. I've had such a fortunate life, and I love what I do, and it's just it's a great time.
Matt, how do you shift between like the roles of like the responsibility of like managing and upkeeping this company, and then shifting into creating work for the company?
So, there's that phase when you're making work where you're like, it's exciting and you're making new ideas, and every new idea sounds like it's going to really work. It's going to be great. Mm-hmm. That shift where you're like, okay, now I got to get out my shears and snip, snip, snip. And you know what?
Taper it down. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels similar to me. To that kind of a shift between, like, I'm in the sandbox, I'm playing, and then the childlike fun wonder, and then the adult part of that's like edit
responsibility, and
it's not that different. And the thing, but the thing I find really challenging for myself is that because there are day-to-day things to take care of, logistics, deciding, who's going to fly out to this show, who's going to stay at home, who's going to go to Singapore, and who's going to, all of this kind of, like, there's all of those kind of logistic, they're meetings that we have, and they're standing meetings. Mm-hmm. But the creative part, it's like, I find, I never know where the idea is going to come from next. And we say, I think I'm probably heard, I don't remember who we heard this from, but it's like having a mouse in your house. You don't know where it's going to poke its head out. You don't know when it's going to poke its head out. You just set a bunch of traps and you're patient.
I actually have a question about Shadowland, because we saw that about 2 years ago in Dallas together, actually.
Yes, it's so crazy.
It was wonderful. And going to this sense of collaboration and on the spot, we noticed that there was an ode to Dallas. So these odes to the different cities that you were traveling, does that happen through this process where you're like, here's the city, here's something that's important, make the shape, or is it more planned out?
These guys, so what we do is we look at, so first of all, we're online, of course, like everybody would be. And then we just try and ask the locals, ask the presenter, ask the crew, ask family and friends, because we want to get past the Wikipedia page if we can. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of an exercise in how fast we've gotten at this stuff, because they usually make that whole thing the day of.
Wow.
Oh, really?
That's what I was wondering.
Oh my gosh.
So we'll have the props. We'll have a prop artisan cut out, because that they can't do fast.
Right.
So we have to cut out some of the props, and we might have several, maybe some of them we're not going to use. Maybe one of them doesn't work and they have to redo it. but we have an idea of what it's going to be. And then the dancers, most of the time without us there, have to figure out how they're going to do it. And sometimes we'll get like a little video or something and we'll say, maybe you should do it this way or do something a little bit different. I'm kind of selling the dancers short with that. That's just to make me feel like a great artistic director. But the truth is that they do a lot of, they know what we want, and they
they know how to execute it quickly.
Yeah, I'm trying to say, when I say they know what we know what they know what we want. I'm just looking up one so I could kind of share one with you. So, like, for example, we'll make Texas, generic Texas images. So these are the ones we said, okay, make the state silhouette, do a cowboy and a horse and a lasso. We can take armadillos, blue bonnets, cowboy hats, prop boots, ropes, lassos. We need sound effects of a horse whinnying or a yeehaw or a crowd cheer. Those are like, can't do all of those. And then we'll say, for Dallas, the Reunion Tower, Skyline, restaurant that spins, Traveling Man sculpture, Perot Museum of Nature and Science, the Texas Theater, and we were putting images in there. Rodeo, cowgirls, horses, cowboy hats, oil pump, Big Tex State Fair. And then we'll say, interesting fact, Big Tex burned down in 2012 and was rebuilt. It was a huge deal. So they might at that moment say, oh, maybe we can do something to show like Big Tex rising out of a flame like a phoenix. Or, when I say they know what we want, I just want to be clear that I don't mean the specific images. Right. I mean, they know that it's got to have a twist. When we're doing this kind of shadow things and these kind of sort of, I don't
like puppetry arts almost with bodies.
Things that can be kind of, I don't mean cheesy, but they're like crowd pleasers. It's always best when we have a kind of irritation that gives you an excuse to do it.
Don't forget to say no to the box.
How do you look for dancers who can come into the process quickly? Because apparently they know how you process and how you work as a company in that collaborative way. So what kind of dancers do you look for when you are looking for new members?
And how do you look for them?
Well,
how do you find those traits?
Well, we are about to have an audition that is, Emily, when is our audition? Do you know the dates?
8th, 9th, 10th of October.
The 8th, 9th, and 10th of October, we will be holding auditions somewhere in New York. I don't know if we've landed on the space yet. And we have gotten really good over the years at asking the right questions. And I mean, literally asking you a question like, what did you have for breakfast? And being able to tell when people answer if they're kind of someone who can have a dialogue, or if there's someone who, there are some companies that they need a technician who can execute very quickly exactly what the choreographer is asking.
Right?
That's not us most of the time. So if you are auditioning for Pilobolus and that's your strong suit and you're not good at a deep dive or questioning your director, but in a respectful way that's not too much, but doesn't do exactly, it's like this weird balance, then you're not going to be happy and we're not going to be happy.
Well,
Right.
Matt, I want to pause you. How do you, I guess, judge that just based on like a simple question, or what is it you look for when they answer?
I don't know if I can tell you. It's not that I'm trying to be secretive. It's just something that in a blink of an eye.
Is it like instinctual, or
You recognize it?
It's intuition.
Mhm.
When you're like driving somewhere and if you're driving down the road and you see like a guy jogging and he's very far, you can't really get any details, but you're like, that's a good looking dude. I know it.
I don't know that I thought that, Matt. Just kidding. I know exactly what it sounds.
It's like, it's that kind of thing where you just, something tells you. And now I will say that sometimes, okay, hold on for a second. What are you trying to say?
Sorry.
Emily, our education manager who helps with our auditions and basically runs our auditions and helps Renee and I kind of organize it, and is right there with us saying, maybe this person you should see again, give that person another chance. I think there's something you didn't see. And some of the people that we've hired have been, kind of that kind of group like think. And she's here on vacation. We're married. She's on vacation here.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
She's like mouthing things to me. I'm trying to see. What are you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I think one way to be clear is that 90% of the audition is improvisations. And that's important. Like we will teach the dancers a short phrase. I mean, it lasts maybe 30 seconds. That's the very first thing they do. Like, can they run? Can they jump? And can they do that like athletically and naturally? There's a few little things, like, can they kick up into a handstand and roll out of it? Like, how well do they? It's not about like, did they remember it was 8 jumps and not 9? It's about, what do they look like when they're doing that? Do they
like the physicality of it?
Yeah, because we don't want, there's so many dancers who run with the dancer run. That's like in air quotes, that's kind of like ball heel, toe, ball heel. Can they leave that behind? And then once you kind of get past that stage, it's like, what do you do? Show me how you move. And then the people who make it past that stage, it's like, now show me a different version of you. And they'll keep doing that, and some people will actually say that you've seen it. Like,
well, that's very yes. I get what Emily said. I mean, I sometimes that I'm, so I really haven't been in other auditions, and the other auditions that I went to, I was already kind of in a place where I didn't have to do that part. I was lucky enough, and it was usually working for someone who used to be in Pilobolus,
right?
Danny Ezra or something like that. And so I didn't have to have, and it's also though, because why would I go be in a modern, why would I ever want to do that? I don't have what those people are looking for. I didn't, and I never had what they were looking for. But you're right, Emily. We're looking for a kind of, Jonathan Wolkin, one of our founders, used to call it spherical evenness. We need
evenness.
Yeah. We need people that are comfortable upside down, sideways, backwards, and at some strange angle. We need people these days that can roll on the floor. If they can't do a very smooth roll, it is an indication of other things that we'll need that they will have difficulty with. They have to be able to perform with their entire being, meaning their face and their emotions.
Right.
Element. Yeah, there's like a acting or embodying of a character. If they can't leave themselves behind or be sad or show us a quality, then we will end up, that won't work because our dancers are not so much learning a precise steps. They are cultivating an experience that they rehearse so that they can have that experience in front of an audience.
And Matt, does that have to do with this idea of like human connection?
Yes.
In reading through the website, that's like so evident in all of the work that Pilobolus you all produce. So do you think that's how you're able to it's through the dancers that human connection is conveyed?
Yes, there's a kind of neural mirroring that people experience when they watch dancers. Also,
could you explain that for some of our listeners who might not know what?
Yeah, sure. When you watch humans do something, you imagine that you're doing it. It's why people watch Pilobolus and say, I feel like I could do that kind of. I can fly through the air. It doesn't seem, a lot of the times our work isn't to look as if we're doing something virtuosic. I mean, it is in a way, but we're kind of trying to say, like, can you imagine that you're up here, that you're a bird, that you're flying through the air? Could you imagine what it would be like to be able to be weightless? And you experience that in your body. But also, the dancers undergo a biochemical change in their physiology when they're really performing.
Can you describe like what the shift is? So performing versus not performing?
Yeah. Have you ever had someone kiss you and they didn't mean it?
Yeah. Man, you're good with these life experiences.
Well, that's what it's like, right? It's like when you you see them. It's when they're not actually doing it. They're faking it.
Mm-hmm.
It's only after you've performed a piece many, many, many times that you can be on autopilot. It takes a long time to do that. And there are certain pieces that you have to learn the movement. Then you put in then you can start to put in the emotion. I mean, when I was studying music as a bass player, I had to know the notes first, and then I would put the emotion into it. But that's why I wasn't such a great musician, because I always wanted to skip that. I wasn't really feeling it. I wanted to feel it first. So as a physical performer, I was probably better because faking it is inverted. You know, I would fake it by meaning it. And even if I didn't do the moves, no one cares. Because, you know, the thing is, when this is good I think this is something to remind your young dancers and choreographers, or anybody, myself included. The audience doesn't remember choreography. Like, they don't leave the theater and say, I love that part where the woman jumped 3 times and then she spun around twice. And, you know, they go, oh, he was chasing her and she fled. And then she changed her mind and she swooned into his arms. You know, that's what people remember. They don't, it doesn't matter what you're doing if you're conveying that emotional content. But if there's no structure, then that doesn't work either, because it's not an improv. There's music. The music is usually canned, and when it's not, the musician isn't just doing whatever, and the lights have a cue and there's timing and, you know, all that stuff. I'm not saying like it's just so loosey-goosey. It's just like it's like jazz. There's a structure, but there's this wiggle inside of it. And I find that human correction of human error of the precision of the movement is part of what makes it real.
Do we need to have a social media presence? Is that something that's important when you are looking for casting people? Do you check out their Instagram to see if they have a following?
I totally, you know, I just heard about this totally reasonable practice about how people will go to an audition and then the people will say, like, how many followers do you have? And that is very foreign concept to me. I don't know, not for us.
Okay.
I don't care if you have never touched a computer, if you can do what we're asking. That's not part of our job description. Now, if I looked at somebody's social media and they were doing interesting things that made me feel something, then that would mean something to me. But I'm not it's not on the checklist at all.
It's good to know. Yeah.
Perhaps it should be, but I don't think so. And
so would you say then that social media do you think it's shaping how the company is making and sharing work? Because I mean, definitely through media, there's so many opportunities for just, you know, regular Americans in air quotes, to connect to Pilobolus. So yeah, what are your thoughts on social media?
I think it's really important. I do think it's changing lots of things, but not always in the way that I was expecting. So, for example, when we go to perform somewhere, when we're coming to a town near you, we need to have material that will work on Instagram. Like every presenter needs that. That's what their marketing is. So the thing that I think about a lot, I was thinking about your questions, is it good? Is it good for dance? Is that what it says? Is it a positive influence on the dance world?
Yeah.
Yes or no? I don't think it's a yes or no question, because it sort of depends on how you look at it. Sometimes the media is the message. And when people,
what do you mean by that?
I mean, people will create work with the thought, like, is it tweetable? Can I put this on Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have time to make something that's way too long and way too boring for like 6 months before I find out what it's really about? No, you don't. You have to make it happen now. But see, that's my middle age, like old guy version. That's like, it's with social media, and everybody wants to see it up there in a sound bite. And it's going to be a clip. Like it's not bad. It's interesting.
Do you think there's a correlation though between like people in this generation currently wanting to create dance for social media and people perhaps who want to create dance just to please an audience?
Explain the difference between those two things a little bit, and I'll tell you.
Yeah, I feel like perhaps there are some, and maybe it's me asking a leading question, but I feel like in our generation, there are people who want to create dance and share their work on social media with the intention of getting the likes. And I'm wondering if you think there's an alignment between that and companies or artists who make work with the sole purpose of getting,
I see,
I guess, butts in seats, for lack of better words.
Chasing the likes kind of thing, getting the clicks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And like another question is, I mean, how do you think that might shift dance as an art form?
It will. It has. I think it is. I mean, so there's things that you can do in social media and on. Okay, let me back you up here, because this is me like being thinking back on my history. So I think, for example, when I would learn a new dance, I would get out a VHS tape and I would stick it in, and I could barely see anything because the $4,000 camera wasn't really that good.
Mm-hmm.
And now somebody just puts their phone up and records it, and it's better than anything I ever could have looked at. So there's, for example, a bias towards the new simply because the quality of the video is better. And it's hard sometimes to know if the dance was actually performed better or not when you're looking at a piece, say, that's 40 years old.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I thought, like, that's kind of, what does that mean? Then there's the idea that for a while, people were trying to take dances and put it on social media. But what y'all have done, your generation, is make dance for social media. And I find that much more engaging, personally. Because I feel like it's someone's trying to get out a message, and the message is part of the media.
Right. So it's almost like, I think for us, or how I'm seeing it, is similar to like dance film or dance on camera as its own separate medium. Social media is now becoming this new medium, this new stage for dance. But I do wonder just like the correlation between like live dance.
Right. Because the masses, it's easier to see the Instagram post than it is to buy the ticket to the concert.
Create, discuss, and advocate for art. No box dance.
So our world right now, I think we have a lot of shortcuts or short circuits. And I got this idea of short circuit from a new friend named Stuart Bogey, who has a fantastic band called Superhuman Happiness. And he's been coming out and playing and collaborating with Pilobolus and doing amazing things in like 3 hours unplanned. And he's going to change what Pilobolus does. So
sounds really cool.
He's amazing. So check out Superhuman Happiness. It's great.
Okay.
But and
we'll link it in our show notes too.
Yes.
Yeah, great, because everyone's gonna love him. And he was talking about how with our phones in our pockets, we have a primal need to be connected to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think we've tricked ourselves. We think we're doing it, but we're more isolated than ever. Yep. And so we have to be careful. And I think it's really important if you just look at the last election and how Facebook was a part of that and other social medias. It's not bad to be cautious and suspicious of technology that we don't fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is like, I was an early adopter for lots of technology. And I remember getting on Twitter when everyone was like, what do you mean there's only 140 characters? That'll never work. So it's not that I don't think that it's bad. I just think we have to be careful. And you see, the thing is, when you go to a live show, that is unlike seeing something on social media, because there's a kind of limbic resonance. When we were just at the Joyce Theater and we had brought back our vintage classic Untitled. And to do this, we reached out to Robbie Barnett and Martha Clark, who were original members of Pilobolus and had created that piece with the other 4 members of the company. So that's your picture. So we're back at the Joyce Theater. We hadn't been there for 5 years. And I'm sitting next to the house manager because he rushed me down at the last second to put me in an empty seat. And in front of me is Martha Clark. And she's watching a piece that she created 40 years ago.
Wow.
And to my right was a couple that clearly had never seen Pilobolus and thought somebody had slipped acid in their Kool-Aid or something. Like they freaking out. They loved it, but they were just like, they were laughing when the woman gets really tall. And then I noticed that Martha's chuckling, but she's also laughing because that's her old role. And did it go okay? And is the audience watching? And the house manager is sitting to the left of me, and he's laughing, but he's interested because the rest of the house is enjoying it. And I'm like having my own experience. And I realized that here we all are, this room full of 500 something people, and none of us are watching the same show.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all laughing at the same time. We're still in it together. That part doesn't happen when you're watching it on a screen by yourself.
As we wrap up, we have our Flash 4 portion where we ask all of our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash.
Flash 4.
You ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be?
Well, I have to say, I have always been a fan of the podcast Radio Lab, and I continue to be, and they just keep getting better.
Awesome. What was the first dance you saw?
First dance I saw. And you mean like a concert professional, like
it could be concert professional. We've had people
however you want to interpret
social.
it.
Yeah, your choice.
Well, the first dance I saw, I don't even know. I mean, it's true. One of the first performances that I saw as a professional company was Pilobolus, and probably in 1992. And I still remember the program. It was Particle Zoo, Pseudopodia, The Empty Suitor. No, I'm sorry. Particle Zoo, Women's Duet, 92. So it must have been 1992. The Empty Suitor, and Rejoice. Before that, I did watch my sister doing some dances in her recital when I was probably 5 years old. And I decided to take some tap dancing, and I did that. The only dance class I've ever taken was probably like 6 months of tap dancing when I must have been like 5.
That's great. So I know you touched on this next question a little bit, but question number 3, do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
Social media certainly has a positive influence on the dance world. It probably also has a negative influence on the dance world. But I'm going to just be optimistic and say that in the end, it'll come out in the positive. We'll be in the black.
And our last question you've also kind of touched on, but you can keep your answer, change it if you'd like. What is your favorite social media platform?
Favorite social media platform? Well, like I said, I am fascinated by TikTok, but I don't know if I could say that's my favorite because I know so little about it. I am a fan of YouTube because I'm a middle-aged man and I own a house. And without that, I would have to pay plumbers a lot more money than I would how to fix my dishwasher.
That's hilarious.
Oh, gosh. Well, Matt, we just wanted to say, again, thank you so much for your time and just for sharing your stories and all about Pilobolus with our audience. But before we wrap up, we were hoping you could share with our listeners your social media handles, website, and just how they can stay connected with you and with Pilobolus.
Oh, well, of course. Let me just make sure that I know.
We will definitely link them in the show notes for everybody as well.
Sure. You certainly go to pilobolus.org where you can find all of our social media. And our dancers also, everyone should follow. They're great. And we do have Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, usually under Pilobolus.
Well, great. Well, Matt, talking with you is just such a treat. So thanks again so much for your time.
Oh, you guys are so fantastic. And Marthea, Azaria, you are gems. And I hope that you continue to just pump out these prolific and insightful podcasts. And if you ever need another one or want to get a different perspective from the dancers, or maybe perhaps someone who's on in the dance world, kind of, not as a choreographer or a dancer, but all of those support roles that we're so grateful to have. I'm sure anyone would be happy to talk to you because you've been such a pleasure.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. That was sweet.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.